Lexus, the luxury brand from Toyota, introduced in 1989, the brand responsible for taking down the German luxury mainstays in the 90s and 2000s, is now going fully battery electric in North America, Europe, and China by 2030. Today we dive into the future of Lexus. Welcome back to the channel. I'll be heading to Santa Barbara in just a couple weeks to drive the all-new 5th generation Lexus RX. Make sure you are subscribed. Hit that bell icon because you do not want to miss my driving impressions of the new RX. Also, if you missed my breakdown of Acura, Honda, Kia, and all the upcoming Japanese and Korean automakers, what is next for these brands? Make sure to check those out. And let's get into the electric future of Lexus. We'll rehash 2022 and then we'll get into the future years, but I wanted to go back to this past December when Toyota and Lexus shared their battery electric vision for the company. And look at what we have. We'll be referring to this image multiple times throughout this video today, so keep that in mind. But let's rehash 2022 for Lexus. It was a huge year for the brand. We got, well, starting with the small end, literally and figuratively, just a minor refresh on the UX. It is now only hybrid, getting rid of that front wheel drive 169 horsepower CVT variant of it. The hybrid is definitely the way to go in the UX. Better power, all-wheel drive, and better efficiency. Has an optional handling package on it now, so that's pretty cool. Now also in the UX you have updated Lexus infotainment. Rest in peace, clock, we'll miss you. The LX came out at the beginning of 2022, the all-new LX 600 based on the F platform. We didn't get a hybrid version of that. Hopefully we'll see that in later years. We'll talk about that during the timeline as well. I mentioned the RX at the beginning of this video. The RX is the best-selling Lexus vehicle for the brand by a landslide, pretty much in every single market around the world. The RX is just luxury personified in a crossover, and they do it better or as good as anyone else in the game. And the new RX should set the bar even a little bit higher. We got new powertrains for it. Gone is the V6. There's a 2.4 liter turbo. We're also hybridizing that turbo for the first ever direct 4 setup for a Lexus vehicle, which gives it a lot more power and torque to the rear wheels versus previous hybrids. You're also going to have a plug-in hybrid. We'll talk about that later because it is not coming out this year for North America. It probably will be available in Europe, other parts of the world, this plug-in hybrid this year, the RX 450h Plus, but there's no information on it coming to the United States probably until late next year is my guess, or maybe early next year, but not going to get my hopes up. We also had the introduction of the Lexus RZ, the first fully battery electric vehicle, not counting the UX. That's a modified C platform vehicle that we don't even get the UX 300e here anyways. But the RZ, first ever skateboard platform vehicle on the new ETNGA platform. We don't know if this vehicle is going to be coming this year. And the reason is, if we go to just updated today, it's August 1st at the time of this recording, Toyota keeps adjusting like every couple days their production from Japan, and it gets worse and worse and worse. All the semiconductors that they need to produce new vehicles is really crimping their production volume, and none more than their electrified Moto Machi line. Production line number 1. So this looks like pretty much a mirroring of what we saw in July. These vehicles, not only are they recalled, the BZ4X and the Subaru Solterra in North America for their wheels falling off literally, and there's still not a fix for it, but the production is just in the tank because they don't have the right semiconductors to build these vehicles. So the Lexus RZ will be built on the same production line as the BZ4X, as the Subaru Solterra, as the Mirai. It's not looking good for production for the Lexus RZ to make it this year. It might slip into 2023 before we get our hands on or should I say the dealers get their hands on this vehicle, because hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll be able to drive this vehicle before the end of the year. Many journalists throughout the world, in Europe, especially in Japan, have been able to drive the RZ already. So now we get into 2023, and I just wanted to lay out some of the future guidelines for Lexus here as we do this. Lexus will have a battery electric vehicle in each of its segments by 2030 and will go fully electric, selling only BEVs by 2035. So 2030 will be here in the United States, China, and Europe, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, and then everything will be BEV by 2035 for Lexus. Toyota will have a completely different strategy and philosophy. Now, internal combustion engine and hybrid products will have only one or perhaps two full product cycles left before they switch powertrains or are replaced by similar battery electric vehicles. We'll talk about that as well today. And then also by 2025, there will be either a fully battery electric version or electrified versions, meaning hybrid versions of every single model in the Lexus lineup. So electrification is going to be happening for Lexus very, very quick. It's going to seem kind of slow in these next couple of years, but then it's really going to ramp up, especially in the second half of the 2025s, which we'll mention in today's video. So make sure you have your snacks and drinks because we're getting our crystal balls out. We're going to take these with a little bit of a grain of salt. 2023 Lexus GX should be getting a redesign. This vehicle's been out, since 2009? The GX 460, as we know and love, with the V8. They're going to replace this vehicle with an F platform GX. Might be a little bit bigger, but since it shares everything with the Prado, it might be about the same size, maybe packaged a little bit differently. Now, the V6 twin turbo is going to be replacing the V8, so we'll have more power, more torque on this vehicle than we've ever seen before, and it should also be more fuel efficient. Will it be as smooth as the V8? No. And it will have a 10-speed automatic instead of the excellent but old 6-speed automatic that we see in the current GX. This vehicle should be announced in the second half of 2023. I don't know if it will be available in 2023 though, the Lexus GX. It might be available in the first half of 2024. But I know a lot of you guys are excited for this, and I think Lexus has an opportunity here to make it a more off-roading, or at least give it an off-roading variant, more so than we've ever seen before. They've been teasing it with the GX OR concepts. There are two of them. And people love modifying their GX for overlanding, almost like a luxury version of the 4Runner. Another three-road vehicle coming, it's a brand new vehicle for Lexus, is the TX. It'll be sharing a lot with the Toyota Grand Highlander we've built in the Princeton, Indiana plant, alongside, let's say, the Highlander hybrid as well as the Sienna hybrid. And this vehicle is going to be bigger than the GX. It'll be probably more like a QX60, Acura MDX, BMW X7 sort of competitor. We should have the Lexus Teammate Level 2 autonomous driving in here, so that's pretty amazing. We'll also have the self-parking feature in it. Pretty cool as well. You're also going to have a plethora of powertrains. So instead of just rattling off the powertrains, I figured I'd just bring up my powertrain spreadsheet for the K platform vehicles. And of course, the Lexus TX is a K platform vehicle. So what am I expecting for this? Well, it should be a TX 350 with a 2.4 turbo, 275 horse, 317 horsepower. This will actually have an 8-speed auto, more than likely. They just updated this 8-speed auto in the Lexus NX. So that's pretty much a lock. It might be all-wheel drive only. Now the next powertrain, the first hybrid powertrain, because I think there could be 3 of them. Isn't that crazy? 3 powertrains on the electrified options for the TX. So 350h, this is going to be the easiest one to get your hands on, more than likely. I'm expecting around 250 horsepower because it'll have the 246 base that the Sienna hybrid has, but it's probably going to be rated on premium. You could still put regular in it, but it'll be rated on premium and should be able to push over 250 horsepower. And this large 3-row crossover, if the Sienna can get 36 miles per gallon, this being less aerodynamic, it'll probably be in like 33, 32 miles per gallon. In city, it'll be about the same though, and that'll be pretty cool. Then you're going to have the 500h F Sport Performance model, and this vehicle, as we see in the upcoming RX, has 367 horse, 406 pound-feet of torque, made it to a 6-speed automatic, no ECVT like we see on the 350h. So this vehicle is going to be a burner, a soccer mom tearing through the streets with this amount of electrified power, 367 horse, 0 to 60 should be around 6 seconds. Just plenty quick for a huge 3-row crossover. Now where things get a little bit dicey is a plug-in hybrid. But my source is telling me that this setup right here is probably the most likely. Now, the numbers, take them with a grain of salt, but I'm hearing a naturally aspirated, updated 3.5-liter V6. Now, aside from the engine, the transmission's hard for me to figure out. Could this be a similar setup to what we see on the 500h? with a 6-speed automatic with an electric motor in between, it is hard to say. If the 500h has 367 horsepower, I think we might actually be able to get more horsepower than this. They wouldn't call it an F-Sport Performance though, because this battery pack will make it pretty heavy. But this should be the range-topping powertrain for the TX. I don't expect it to be available at launch, just like the RX 450h Plus is not available at launch. So it'll be great to see Lexus have a very competitive and just an ass-kicking 3-row crossover in their lineup that they've needed for decades at this point. The LX and the GX, those are heavy body-on-frame SUVs, really designed for durability, off-roading, and just overall luxury. The TX is there for more practicality and luxury, and not so much the heavy-duty aspect, and maybe tuned more for on-road performance, like the LX and GX is definitely not. Now we're going to step into 2024, and things are getting pretty spicy here. The Lexus ES production is going back to Japan after 2023. So in 2024, ES goes back to Japan probably for a new redesign. And we actually have an image of what this redesign is going to be looking like. So it's a much more spindle body. The spindle grille is going away, and that's a sign of things for more electrification. So I think the ES could very well have a plug-in hybrid, or at the very least have the new Toyota Crown setup, which actually is the new RX setup. So there will be a 500h F-Sport Performance probably with this vehicle, with a new bipolar nickel metal hydride battery, 367 horsepower, and over 400 pound-feet of torque. That could very well come to the ES because the Crown has that. So why would the Crown get it and the ES not? Also expect all-wheel drive on this for the hybrid, something that we've been asking and dying for in the ES. Instead, they gave us a lame 250 all-wheel drive with around 200 horsepower naturally aspirated 4 cylinders. So we'll be getting around 250 horsepower all-wheel drive, around 50 miles per gallon as well on the new ES hybrid. 2.4 turbo could be replacing, but there's a possibility, guys. There is a possibility that the ES has no non-hybrid options. My source is that the upcoming Camry might not have anything else other than a hybrid. So that could be the very same for the Lexus ES for the next generation coming out of Japan. Could we see a plug-in hybrid of it? I sure hope so, but we might not see that until solid-state batteries, as they prefer to put plug-in hybrids into things like their crossovers, which make more money because they're higher ticket item. NX, RX, TX will be those plug-in hybrids, I am assuming. Now also 2024, we should be getting that plug-in hybrid of the TX, and there's that TX right there. What about this vehicle way on the left? So we have ES, TX, RX, NX, UX, and this is what I'm expecting, which should come in 2024 as a 2025 model, is the new Lexus CT. It's been discontinued here in the United States since 2017. It's still actually being produced in Japan. Don't know why. I guess it still sells over there, but this vehicle is old as dirt and it needs to be updated. So it's either going to be on the B platform, which is like the Yaris and the Yaris Cross, for example, or it'll be on the C platform shared with the UX over here. And there's talks about the UX redesign and the CT rebirth, kind of sharing some design and developmental ideas between the two. Time will tell, of course, but I would love to have an entry-level Lexus on the market, starting at maybe the upper 20s. Incredible fuel economy, very small and easy to park, and there's supposed to be for the CT a battery electric version. Remember, there is one of this UX as well for certain markets, but the CT was supposed to have a battery electric version, probably something modest like 200 miles of range and 200 horsepower, nothing crazy, but they might just standardize all-wheel drive with it as well. So it might be more like the BZ4X's powertrain, so around 200 horse all-wheel drive standard for that EV, which would make sense to me. You're also going to have a hybrid variant, no surprise, right? Expect all-wheel drive on that. And then you'll also have a non-hybrid version, possibly a 3-cylinder. Do I expect a plug-in hybrid of this vehicle? Probably not. Just like we haven't got a plug-in hybrid on the UX, but we do have that on the NX, RX, TX, so should expect one on the TX. So that sums up 2024. New ES, TX plug-in hybrid, CT rebirth, and then we step into 2025, and this is where I feel like Lexus really takes a hard step into the future. 2025 is supposed to be when, remember, all their models become electric to some degree. So that means the LX will have a refresh probably, and then we'll be getting a hybrid. Will it be just like the, let's say the new Tundra hybrid? I think that's probably the most conservative estimate with that iForce Max powertrain. Since the vehicle's so damn expensive, they could also make it a plug-in hybrid standard if they wanted to and make tons of power if they want. And 2025 we'll get a refresh of the NX, which was just redesigned at the end of 2021. We're also hearing that the LFA could be having a rebirth, kind of like the CT, bringing something back from the past that's been discontinued. We're hearing all sorts of things with this LFA2 twin turbo V8 plug-in hybrid, like 800 horsepower. I just don't know what to believe. I just have a big question mark around the LFA2. It could even be fully battery electric, which doesn't make any sense because we'll talk about something else in 2026. And also in 2025, that's when Toyota and Lexus is supposed to have solid state batteries. But Toyota went out and said that solid state batteries will first be employed in 2025 by hybrids, but that's on the Toyota lineup. Could they employ solid state batteries on the Lexus lineup for solid state battery electric vehicles? That's a possibility. Don't think it's likely. I think it'd still be too costly. So I think they have new next generation normal lithium ion batteries to launch this new Lexus IS battery electric family. If you missed my video talking about the electric IS, make sure to check that out because Best Car had a lot of information on it. But it will be coming out in theory in 2025 based off of this. So this is the new IS base model. This vehicle looks absolutely insane. The issue is with these sort of designs, we're led to believe that these designs, I would say from the IS electric vehicle on over, they're supposed to be based on solid state batteries, but I just don't see that happening for the IS. It might be too expensive by 2025. So the designs could differ here, and we might see a little bit taller version of the IS because the battery pack is going to be bigger in order for it to sit on top of it. So even though this might be a little bit taller based on what we're seeing here, it'll still be the same size as or the same height as the current IS in theory, because if we look at, say, the Tesla Model 3, it's essentially the same height as the current IS. So expect the proportions to be about the same, but to look way better with shorter overhangs, long wheelbase, and just insane design like we're seeing right here. But I don't think they just launched this vehicle. I think the IS is going to be a very global model, and sedans and variants of sedans especially are very, very popular around the world. So that's when we start looking to the left of this vehicle and at these variants of the IS. So we have a raised hatchback here, which kind of reminds me of the Sport Turismo, I believe, of what we see with Porsche. And then we have a lower version of it. So pretty much an IS wagon, which we haven't seen an IS wagon since the first generation Sport Cross IS wagon. So that's badass. So we have two different versions, essentially a cross country and a standard one. And the good old Lexus IS convertible returns. I see the IS 250 and 350Cs quite often here in South Florida. So that is pretty darn cool. And I'm just now realizing this has been like copy and paste in here because you see the outline around this vehicle. It just looks a little off with this gray and the black contrast. I can't believe I didn't notice that before. Do I expect all of these battery electric versions of the IS to come out in 2025? No. Especially the convertible, but I think it's realistic to expect the sedan and at least one of these liftback wagons to come out. Saloon and estate versions, whatever part of the world you're in. So that is very, very exciting in 2025, and expect massive amounts of horsepower. I'm almost expecting the ISF to make a return as well with this new IS. I think it'll be a lot easier for Lexus to have F models of their performance cars, assuming they can keep the battery cool enough. But yes, everyone else is having 500-600, like Chevy's new Blazer EV is going to have 560 horsepower or whatever. So Lexus needs to really step up their game with electrification power. The RZ is very modest, as you would expect from Toyota and Lexus, with 308 horsepower. This IS should break open those floodgates in terms of performance from a battery electric vehicle. Now, getting into 2026, we will have another battery electric vehicle coming from Lexus. And what do we have in this list that we haven't had on the market previous to 2026? Well, it's this vehicle right here. This could come out in 2026 only riding on solid state batteries. That's the only way this vehicle works, 0 to 60 in like 2 seconds, 400 miles of range. has to have solid state batteries. This vehicle over here also makes a lot of sense. This 3-row crossover. Let's call it the GZ for, I don't know, that's probably the Jizz. That's probably not a good name for this vehicle. Let's just call it the TZ. How about that? TZ, because we have the TX back here. So call this the TZ. The reason why I think this vehicle could very well come in 2026 is because this won't require solid state batteries like the IS and that sport battery electric vehicle very well could. There will be a Toyota version of this vehicle as well. We saw pictures of it from the December release. So I think that vehicle does come out in 2026, with this sport battery electric vehicle probably in 2027 or later, because it needs that solid state batteries. And I just don't think we're as close as we would like to be with that. Also in 2026, outside that 3-row TZ, not GZ, 3-row crossover, that's what I'm calling it, we have a UX redesign, unless they want to cancel it because maybe that CT is just better in every way. Hard to say. We'll also have an RX refresh at that point and an RZ refresh. Now, there are 3 Lexus models that I have not mentioned in this because their future is extraordinarily uncertain. We'll start with the LS, the vehicle the brand was founded and was built upon. I have no idea what they're going to do with the LS. They didn't show us anything on that battery electric vehicle announcement in December. So it's not nearly as important as it used to be. Lexus probably figuring out what they want to do with it. If they want to redesign it into something like the LF1 Limitless concept as like a flagship crossover, kind of like the Q8 from Audi or something like that. I just don't know what they're going to do with the LS. So I didn't want to talk about that at too much in today's video. We also don't know about the LC, which shares the LS's platform. And the LC got the convertible, but if the IS is kind of fitting the bill for the next convertible, they don't really need the LC convertible to be around. And then also, what about the RC? Well, RC is dead. I don't expect the RC to survive much longer. It's already been canceled in certain parts of the world due to safety issues and just emissions. So RC and LC, I think both go down and are replaced by one vehicle. And this vehicle could be in 2025. I didn't put it in there. It's just we don't know enough. This will replace the RC in racing. So the RC GT3 car will get a complete replacement by the GR Super Sport car that Toyota shared in December as well. So I think that will be a really good indicator, and we got patents on it. So patented images of this vehicle. So we should very well see something very similar to it in 2025, 2026 to replace the RC and the LC. Could have an inline 6, could have a twin turbo V8, could be a hybrid. It's really, really tough to say. Just like the LS, the RC, and the LC. This is kind of just the accessory fluff at the end of the video that I really just don't know enough to figure out what's going on with it. But I literally have to end it there. My main camera stopped recording because the video was going too long. So summing it up on my secondary camera. What are you most excited about for Lexus by 2026? Maybe even beyond. There's just so much that Lexus has coming in the next few years. It's really mind-blowing because in the 2010s, it was a slow grind for Lexus, and they started waking up around 2020. And by 2025, they're all guns blazing from every single model that they have, essentially. New products, new powertrains, new technology. It's a damn good time to be a fan of Japanese autos, especially for Lexus. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss my future coverage of upcoming products for Lexus. No one on YouTube is going to cover Lexus like I do, having a background in Lexus sales. And also, that's what this channel was founded on originally, was Lexus videos, giving you guys the newest details about the luxury brand from Toyota. But I gotta end it there. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Have a good day. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.